Hello guys and welcome again. So for today's video, let's take a look at to explore what will be the look of another popular tribal creature type for Lorwyn Eclipse. But we know that it's still going to be one more set before the release of Lorwyn in January 2026. But we're kind of planning ahead and maybe looking forward as to what this deck build. And the creature type that I'm referring to is the Merfolks, and I have listed here some of the current standard legal Merfolk creatures, as well as some of the instants and lands that is possible to look at. And let's take a quick rundown before we go with this one. So we check on the lineup of this creature. As you can see, there are a lot of mostly blue and green as we cover, but so far the revealed Merfolk creature type is this legendary version of Sig Wonderwine Wisdom. So Sig is basically a 2-mana cost 2/2 Merfolk wizard. It can be black, and it enters battlefield or transform into Sig Wonderwine Wisdom. It can have target creature draw a card whenever it deals combat damage to a player planeswalker. And when in your main phase, you can pay 1 white mana to transform it into Sig Wonderwine Shield. So when it transforms into this one, it becomes a 2/2 creature still, but has this trigger to have a target creature you control gains protection from each color until your next turn. So this is kind of a flipping Merfolk wizard that is kind of new for me personally, but this is also giving us an interesting take as to what will be the deck strategy in the release of Lorwyn Eclipse. So for now, let's check on the possible lineup. We check first the 1-drops here. So we have several blue and green choices. Of course, for this first one is Synod Scout. This would be probably a good 1-drop here for this deck, even though it goes with the green color instead. So the main blue color, it enters the battlefield, it explores, so it gets you to do a card draw, or you get this one +1/+1 counter. Basically, it becomes a 1-mana cost 2/2 creature. For the other 1-drop for blue, here is Mistway Spy. This is from Murders of Carlo Manor. This is just a 1/1 generic flyer creature for the Merfolk, but if ever you get to the late game to have this one disguise, then you can have this ability trigger. But the important thing here is that you need to have a curve for the 1-mana cost. So this is also a good by itself by casting only for 1, because it is also an evasive creature flyer for this kind of deck build. And for the other 1-mana cost is this is the pseudo mana sink in the late game, Mindspring Merfolk from Drift. This can get you to exhaust X and blue to tap, draw X cards, and then put a +1 counter on its Merfolk you control. So basically, this is the Lord card effect, though it's kind of more of the late game setup. But this could still be a good option for this deck build. Another option for the 1-mana cost pseudo card is Jadelight Spelunker, which can be also a good mana sink. When you pay X, you will explore X times depending on the mana value. It gets you to draw your lands and also gets to pump this creature. So that is for your 1-mana cost. For the 2-mana cost, aside from Sig, we have a lot of options here. So let's take a look at each one. First, we have Brineborn Cutthroat. I remember this card was kind of popular back in Magic 2020 set, wherein the first release of this card, and it has also some of the options wherein you can flash in creatures and get this one pump during your opponent's turn. So that is also one option for this one. We have also Floodpit's Drowner, which is also goes well with the Cutthroat because it can also flash in. It has Vigilance and can tap a relevant creature from your opponent and putting a stun counter on it, and it can also shuffle it back into the library. So that is your 2-mana cost Floodpit's Drowner. I'm thinking of this one to become maybe a 4-of copy in the deck. And also the new core set or what I mean is the foundation set Harbinger of the Tides. So this is just a reprint, but nevertheless, in the early days, it was very also a good choice for the Merfolk build. You can pay extra 2 to cast it for flash, but the good thing here is that it can bounce off any tap that creature opponent controls on its owner's hand. So it also works well with the Floodpits Downer to get you some options here to bounce. And also one of the 2-drop here would be the Nakan Seal. This is from Lost Caverns of Ixalan. It goes well with Explore mechanics since most of your creatures here are triggering the Explore. So whenever a creature you control explores a land card, you can put it in the battlefield tap, and the creature you control explores another card, you can pump a counter on the Conceal Conductor. One also option here that I can consider, though it's not a Merfolk subtype of the creature type, is Jackal Genius Geneticized. So this creature is basically giving some spells with copying the creature spells. So if whenever those creature spell mana value equal to its power, you get to copy the spell. So you can just good in put those triggers and making Jackal Genius Geneticized bigger, as well as getting some card advantage. Just imagine you can copy Floodpits Drowner, for example, and get those triggers done to top your opponent's threats. And having this one pump would not be a problem because we have this card, Sentinel of the Nameless City, which can also trigger Explore with creating these map tokens to pump off your creatures. And also Merfolk on its own, it is also a good 3-drop. It is very popular in the Golgari decks, and now in the Simic would might be fitting well for a Pauper tribal Merfolk build. And the also popular 3-mana cost Merfolk here is the Shana Standbinder, which can also benefit to have countering trigger or activated ability, and those ability would lose all those types, and if the target is the triggered was artifact, creature, and planeswalker. So this is a good 3-drop for this deck, and probably very efficient in the future Merfolk deck build. And one of the other option here for the 4-mana cost would be Sharay, Numbing Depths. This is the only Merfolk wizard that kind of fits with the Sig's activation because it also has a white mana cost. This also enters, it gets to tap an opponent creature and put an counter on it, and this also gets you a more trigger here. Whenever you tap one or more tap creatures you control, you draw a card, and this triggers only once its turn. But let's imagine Sharay also works well with cards such as Floodpits Drowner to tapping those creatures to get you card advantage also. So that is your creature lineup, and one way to pump them with this anthem effect would be also Patchwork Banner. And can just imagine if there's not yet some fix for paying white mana, Patchwork Banner would be the good inclusion for this deck because it can also add 1 mana of any color, aside also from naming Merfolk as the anthem effect to trigger for this card. And for the spells, we have some good choices here. Before we go with the Innkeeper's Talent, we can discuss that Into the Flood mode would be a good 1 mana cost bounce spell, which is still very good in the metagame. And Phantom Interference would be your option for a counter spell, which can also gets you to mana sink later on to create also a 2/2 spirit creature with flying, and also Repulsive Mutation, which has gaining popularity recently because it can also put counters on creature you control. Extra mana at 2 mana at least, it can counter spells unless that control pays mana equal to the greatest power among creatures you control. And of course, Snake Skin Bill will be your option, protecting your Merfolks against spot removals, that giving them hexproof, as well as putting +1% counter for extra power and damage at the late game. And what works well with counters is of course Innkeeper's Talent, because not only that it gets to +1/+1 your counter and your creature at the beginning of combat, but also gets this trigger, which if it goes to level 2, permanents you control with counters on them have ward 1, therefore kind of protecting them from spot removals. And lastly, the mana fix would look like this. Of course, we still have Breeding Pool as legal in standard, the Shackland, and the Verge would also work well with that one. And also Botanical Sanctum would be your initial mana fix to make sure that blue and green colors would be accommodated, and also naming Merfolks for Cavern of Souls would still be a good way for your spells to not be countered by that matchups against other mid-range or control decks with counter spells. So you can just imagine the build of this would be like going in the blue-green, but also having maybe a Sig with the band colors to have this trigger to satisfy and gets this kind of benefit to your deck build. But so far we only have one Merfolk preview, but we would still expect maybe the Merfolk build would go with the blue and white colors as what it is also presented early back in the Lorwyn set, as the original Lorwyn set. So I guess that's 3 minutes, guys. This is just a preview of the what would be the deck of the Merfolk deck would look like in Lorwyn Eclipsed. We still have one more of the other tribal creatures once more cards are being revealed for Lorwyn, and maybe in the coming months. Again, guys, thank you for checking this one. Don't forget to like, subscribe, notifications on, and see you on the next video.